Hello there, everybody. What's going on? I'm trying something a little bit different today in my approach. It's something I just woke up today and I said, I'm going to do a video and I'm going to call it Serious Sundays. Sundays are a little bit different around my house and my life these days because I'm engaging in what I would describe as a little more of celebrating the Sabbath behavior. And what I mean by that is I start doing some things differently in order to live the day differently. I still get up and I exercise. This morning I got up and I watched this video from a channel on YouTube called Academy of Ideas. And the video title name is How to Escape from a Sick Society. And right now when I review it with you, it'll be like the third time I've seen it. I once saw it quite some time ago, and then I just again saw it this morning when I was working out, and I thought maybe I can do a video and talk about this in a more cerebral type of way. And that I don't want to do this today and not be funny, except that my point of today is to be more serious. That doesn't mean I won't have levity, but I do want to talk about this video. Having said that, I had a strange dream this morning where, well, it was another sexual dream, but this one was a heterosexual dream, and I was tempted by a woman who is married that I know in my life to actually, I say because I'm like afraid to say it, and it's not that I don't know how to talk, it's that I'm like, what's the best way to say it? So as I'm thinking through the way of saying it in my head, I go, and that's what I do. But she's married, and I dreamt that I was watching her child while she was upstairs in her house getting ready. And I recall her child very cute, like it was a tiny child. We're talking like a newborn that has not even spoken its first words yet, and I dreamt the child was like a toddler starting to walk around. But then the child, while the mom was upstairs getting ready, said its first words to me, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, do you know what happened?" And then the mom was excited, and she's like, "No, she didn't. No, she didn't." And then somehow in the dream, the narrative is not always a consistent thread, and the mother and I were hanging out with one another down in the bottom area of the house there, the lower part of the house, and I felt like she was coming on to me, and I said to her when she was doing that, knowing full well that she's married, and I don't go with married women, and that's the truth. I don't even put myself in a situation where there could be the temptation, because there's always the possibility of failing when you're tempted. I said I have a habit of avoiding impropriety, or even the appearance of impropriety. And when I said that, she leapt on top of me and straddled me and took my arms by the wrists and put my hands around her waist. And I was like, whoa, that is intense. I was very aroused in the nether regions, and just like I had a sexual dream last weekend on Sunday morning, I woke up from that dream. And the first thing I said was, oh man, like that's the kind of dream I want to continue, because the arousal, I don't know what it's like for other people, but when I'm dreaming and it's of a sexual nature involving me, it can be intensely arousing psychologically. And then I wake up, and in the corporeal world, the physical world, it just goes away immediately. But I had that dream, and I guess I just wanted to articulate that dream because I have a lot of very vivid dreams, especially since I am not a drinker anymore and I'm not a smoker of marijuana anymore. I have these intense dreams, and sometimes they're interesting to me, and that's the one I had last night. So like a lot of guys could rest easy knowing that I'm not coming after your woman, your girlfriend, or your wife, but I also would avoid even being in the situation where there's the possibility of that impropriety manifesting, where I like get with somebody. And why am I telling you this on Serious Sundays? I don't know. I thought it was an interesting story to bring up. So this is 5 minutes. I'm at the 5 minute mark talking right now, and I'm going to proceed to get into this video right now. It's really interesting, and I just have thoughts as I go through it. It's philosophical. If you're looking for tons of laughs, this is not the video for you, and you should move on. I just have a lot of opinions about the topical stuff in this video, and so I want to make my own commentary and see how this goes. If this video stinks, I might not post it. If I think it has some kind of intellectual merit, I might post it. And another thing today, I was thinking about going without the beanie. And then when I see myself in the camera on the screen without the beanie, I'm like, no, I don't like that. The awkward shape of my head, I feel like I have the head shaped like E.T. And that's not cool. Looking like E.T. with the shape of your head, come on. If I had a thick head of hair, I would never wear a beanie. But I heard someone complaining about having to do their hair before their podcast the other day because it's visual, it's on video. And I was like, oh, boo-hoo, Mr. Thick Head of Hair. Give me a break, Mr. Silver Fox. Boo-hoo, you have hair, and you have to do it to look nice on the camera. I don't have that problem because I just put the beanie on, and it's going to be a whole thing for me to graduate to taking the beanie off. But so here's what I want to do. Actually, let me check my audio really quick here because I think I left it on. Here we go. Now you will be able to hear the audio when I start this video. It would have been a technical problem that I would have had to fix after the fact. So I'm going to go over here to this screen and we're just going to commence with this video again. If you want to follow, this is Academy of Ideas. You can see that they also accept donations, and I have to commend whoever makes all these videos because they are of exceptional quality. He's very intellectual. He's very intelligent the way he splices these thoughts together from different philosophers. And the topics are always relevant. And what also amazes me is that YouTube has not taken this guy down, because you'd think that reading these ideas and studying these ideas would be too enlightening for people, but they're not in the pop culture vein. It's really a good Academy of Ideas is a good name for this because it's academic in nature, in my opinion. So let's just start this out here. And as I follow along, I will probably have commentary that I will stop and I'll start discussing what I think of what's being said.
Alexander Solzhenitsyn, reflecting on the Soviet Union's descent into totalitarian rule in the mid-20th century,
It could be a
and
little
all the
depressing.
things that could have been done to prevent it, wrote the following: If we didn't love freedom enough, and even more, we had no awareness of the real situation, we hurried to submit. We submitted with pleasure. We purely and simply deserved everything that happened afterward. The 20th century clearly shows that totalitarianism is not a solution to any problem, but a social ill of the most horrific kind. More innocent men, women, and children were killed by the totalitarian regimes of the 20th century than by natural disasters, pandemics, or even the 2 world wars. If, therefore, we are unfortunate enough to be living in a world flirting with the sickness of totalitarianism, what can we do to escape?
Yes, I will play that in a moment, but what I will say, commenting on this, is that totalitarianism, embodied, personified in government form, is like the greatest threat to people at all times, and that's why I personally am an advocate for the Second Amendment. Even though I'm not a gun owner yet, I think that government is always something that can get carried away in madness and always proposes the greatest threat to people of all. You'd be better off having earthquakes all around the world once a week than having any totalitarian regime rule over the group of people and having true absolute control. What a nightmare of existence. Totalitarianism is the bane of existence, the worst possible outcome as far as the human experience, for sure. What do we do about it? That is what I want to know more about, so let's continue.
In this video, relying on the insights of those who studied and lived under totalitarian rule, we are going to explore what is called the forward escape from the control of the cruel and twisted minds of would-be totalitarians. To understand what this form of escape entails, we will contrast it with 2 other ways to escape from the hardships of living through an attempted totalitarian takeover: the backward escape and the physical escape. The backward escape entails dulling one's awareness of the reality and precariousness of one's situation through the use of drugs and alcohol,
I'm
or by
guilty of
zoning
that.
out in front of screens for hours on end.
I'm guilty of that.
The backward escape
I'm kind of doing that right now, except it's more thought provoking and it's not shallow entertainment for me. It's cerebral and there's some personal intellectual growth involved here because it's Sunday for me and I indulge in a lot of this kind of thing on Sundays in particular.
can provide
And I played this when I was working out. So it's like when I'm working out, I'm always trying to stimulate my mind with something positive. And let's keep going.
short-term relief to feelings of anxiety, depression, and boredom, but the more one relies on such activities, the more one's mental health deteriorates.
That's for
Furthermore,
sure.
the backward escape does nothing to prevent the rise of totalitarianism, as it promotes docility, passivity, and apathy, all traits that make people more manipulable and controllable, or as Dr. Joost Meerlo explained in his book on totalitarianism. The cult of passivity and so-called relaxation is one of the most dangerous.
Okay, I just want to cut in on this because I thought this when I was exercising this morning, and when he hit that word relaxation, I thought about it. And one of the things I do is every single day almost when I work out, not today because I already had, is I afterwards I calm down by meditating, and it takes about 20 to 25 minutes when I do this, and the end of meditation is always coinciding with a long and complex prayer that I say. And relaxation, as he states it here, it catches me because I realize what he's saying. He's saying like passivity in the way that you're just living through life in not a mindful way. When I relax, it is specifically just to keep the spirit relaxed. I call it keeping like a relaxation loop between my body, my mind, and my body. That's what I focus on when I meditate. And it's really important to me to do that because I'm a high anxiety type of person, and I'm an intense person. But so relaxation is something entirely different here. But when it came to my mind, I thought he means me being passive with superficial things, I think, to put it sort of in a simplified manner. But let's continue. Carry on.
Developments
Here
of
we
our
go.
times. Essentially, it represents a camouflage pattern, the double wish not to see the dangers and challenges of life and not to be seen. Silent, lonely relaxation with alcohol, sweets, or the television screen may soothe the mind into a passivity that may gradually make it vulnerable.
I am guilty of that, sitting in front of the TV for too long. And it's sort of how I tune out all my worries about the world. And I realize I got to get up and be proactive. And that's what I do sometimes. A couple videos ago, I was telling you guys how I forgot something. How I got up the other night to set up this fire in the lower right-hand corner, which is not there. So I'm going to get up as this continues reading and playing to you, and I'm going to start that fire right now, gosh darn it, because I feel incomplete without it. That's a little bit of the levity. You're like, he's talking about this thing seriously right now, and he gets up to do that right now with a goofy smile on his face. Yes. Let's keep listening.
To the seductive ideology of some feared enemy. Denying the danger of totalitarianism through passivity may gradually surrender to its blandishments those who were initially afraid of it. An alternative to the backward escape is the physical escape, which is to relocate to a place that offers more freedom. This form of escape has many benefits, for given that we have one chance at life, why not live somewhere absent the stifling control of corrupt and power-hungry politicians and bureaucrats? But there are problems with this form of escape. Firstly,
yes, just briefly, what they're saying is, I live in a suburb, and it's a little too close to the big city, and we're in a suburb now that over the last decade or two, the traffic's gotten crazy, the hustle and bustle has gotten crazy, just like you're living in the big city. Sometimes I fantasize about getting out of town because I think living in this unnatural environment that's overpopulated is not good for the soul, to be honest with you.
for many people, it is not practical to pack up and move to a new land. Furthermore, If we live at a time when the rise of tyranny is a global phenomenon, the practicality of the physical escape diminishes further, as the sought-after pockets of freedom are few and far between. What is more, if totalitarianism is permitted to proliferate, the places that are free now may not remain so for long.
He says permitted, like as if people just willingly acquiesce to it. Some people are in denial about the manifestation of totalitarianism, and it's like not permitted by me. In fact, I'm the type of individual who's screaming, "No, don't do this. We can't go down this path." And yet it feels like we are subjected to the whim of society. We're pulled along with it, even if we vocalize loudly, vocalize profoundly our objection to it. So not everyone is just going along with it willingly, especially people who don't like it. I could cite a million examples of crap I don't want in life that I think is bad for people. I'll get back to this. I'll definitely say more about that.
Running away, like escaping backward, is not the ideal solution to the rise of totalitarianism. Instead, the solution is to escape forward into a new and better reality. What does the forward escape entail? To answer this question, we need to dispel with the notion that totalitarianism can be defeated through compliance. Many people cede to the commands of would-be totalitarians because they believe that so doing is the quickest means to return to some semblance of normality. But
Pay special attention to this, because even though he makes references to history and puts images up from history, the honest to God truth is that we are living in an era right now where this is prevalent. I don't know. And it's important to make that connection. So let's continue.
this is a cowardly and ignorant way to act. For compliance only emboldens totalitarian regimes, a point emphasized by the political philosopher Hannah Arendt in her book The Origins of Totalitarianism. The most characteristic aspect of totalitarian terror is that it is let loose when all organized opposition has died down, and the totalitarian ruler knows that he no longer need be afraid. Stalin started his gigantic purges not in 1928 when he conceded, "We have internal enemies," but in 1934 when all former opponents had confessed their errors, and Stalin himself at the 17th Party Congress declared, "There is nothing more to prove and, it seems, no one to fight."
Worth noting here, like, to me, I agree with everything he said about compliance just now, but what's concerning to me is I think there's some kind of totalitarianism right now that has manifested, but it can't go full bore crazy just yet. And yet, what I do see in the world with these large scale protests that are taking place, one of them was in Canada with the truckers this last summer. Another one is with farmers in all kinds of places in Europe implementing green policy and so forth. Is what the government is doing, and people are, and farmers and truckers are all coming out to oppose all these things, including mandates, COVID mandates, lockdowns, vaccine mandates, etc. What I'm seeing is large-scale protests that people are putting on, and the government is just ignoring it. It's like they don't care. That's deeply concerning to me, that millions of people are coming out definitively saying no. And we supposedly, many of these societies, especially Western nation states, we live in democratic societies where the leaders are supposed to be implementing the will of the people. But it seems like they've gone rogue from that, even though they pay lip service to democracy. They're not really doing that. It's like, so to me, there's this totalitarianism nature to it, this totalitarian nature to it that has jumped the shark, and they've gone rogue and they're doing whatever they want. And so there are these huge protests which are supposed to drive public policy as led by politicians in society, but it's not happening. They're doing what they want. And one of the things that keeps me up at night in terms of the contemporary totalitarian environment we're in has to do so much with what's happened the past couple of years, but it's been in the making a long time. Globalism is dangerous, period. So you have people wanting to impoverish the middle class by cutting off energy, which kills jobs. It kills. It raises the prices of all sorts of things like food and the price of industrial farming, which there's this nasty cycle when you cut off industry. All these things are happening that keep me awake at night. Imposing things on people, demonizing people, dividing people socially. There's a lot of Marxism going on. We're in a neo-cultural Marxist reality right now where, like, during the Bolshevik Revolution in Russia, there was classic Marxism, and it was a conflict between the bourgeois and the proletariat, which is like the factory owners back then and the workers. So there were just these two classes that were utilized to overthrow Russia back in that time. Well, now neo-cultural Marxism exploits every conceivable way of dividing people in order to undermine society, to divide society so that it makes it ripe for the conquering. And examples are race conflict, conflict over gender, conflict over sexuality, conflict between men and women, even conflict between did you slut shame that person? Did you call that person fat? It's like they want to take every conceivable victim group and use it as a means to divide people and have people divided while they're running away with control and centralizing power and using these conflicts to further consolidate centralized power in the world. But I'm talking too much now, and I just want to keep proceeding with this video because there's a lot left. Although I'm trying not to just dive into this superficially, and I'm not just trying to be like, I'm so great, I have these ideas. I'm a philosopher by nature, and I have my goofy side, and I also have a serious side that is formidable, in my opinion, and I will be heard one way or another, and this is my outlet right now. And so Serious Sundays, I want to have serious discussions about things, and this video inspired me. You won't hear this on that one podcast formerly from Chicago with that one silver fox. You won't. That's my stupid form of levity. It's an inside joke for people who know who I'm talking about, who has a setup similar to this, only his studio is much more vast and beautiful. And I'm inspired because of you to do such a great job. So I hope you at least appreciate that, dude.
Compliance is the food that feeds totalitarians.
Oh my God, food. Yes, food. It's like a nightmare. He barely talked and he brought up food, and that's one of the ways they use to control people. And believe me, the farming industry, the food industry is under attack. And one of the biggest ways you do that is by cutting off energy. And it has me sorely disturbed as a person. I wake up at night, in the middle of the night, and worry about it. That's not a joke.
Compliance is not, and never will be, the path back to some form of normality. Rather, non-compliance and civil disobedience are essential to counter the rise of totalitarian rule.
But what when civil disobedience is not enough? Because what I was just saying is there are these enormous protests going on globally. The media doesn't even cover them because it might like encourage people to go out and say, no, don't go that way. And they are ignored. And that is part of what has me totally nervous. The mainstream media is ignoring enormous, gargantuan protests against all sorts of things right now, especially green policy, COVID lockdowns, and vaccine mandates, which are all insane. And we need to say no to those. We need to say no to CBDC, central bank digital currencies. We need to say no to social credit scores. We need to say no to digital ID, because this is the form it'll take in a technocratic sense. This phone that they have everyone addicted to is what is going to make everyone opt in to their digital bondage. This is such a vital thing right here. This guy from Academy of Ideas, he should do a video on the slavery of the phone, and I'm sure he's touched upon it. But what I'm talking about is how they are slowly, but they've already gotten masses of people addicted to these things. And so the next step is just to slowly but surely keep getting people accustomed to everything you do in life requires this. This is the technocratic prison system we are in. and we would all be well advised to throw it away. Everyone throw away your smartphone. When we get to that point, it'll like free us up. And we'll have to reconstitute society around us, because I think by the time people are willing to throw these things away, to cast off the digital chains, it'll be too late, and we'll have to reconstitute. Everything's going to have to get bad before it gets better. But my point is, bringing up the phones right now, is that's the form of digital bondage that is going to get us right there. They're making a prison of the world, shutting down autonomous movement, where you won't be able to go and do anything. You won't be able to transact, buy anything, unless it is like categorized and put into a social credit score. Oh, you had this many pounds of meat this month, you're done with Meat Buster, unless you take what little monetary digital credits you have and you trade them in against that. You use this much carbon doing that. You traveled this much in your car this week. You can't travel anymore because you've traveled X amount and you've spent your little carbon credit, blah, blah, blah. This is what people need to cast out the window right now to stop tyranny unfolding on us. And I think that tyranny is going to fold in on us. This is also the ultimate surveillance system. They're listening to me right now. And I can't tell how many times I've gone like expletive you right into the mirror or into the microphone on my phone, hoping that someone listening is like, oh my God, that's too loud. And this guy screamed right at you. Those listening to this, because you're surveilling everything and everyone and putting them in a category, expletive you, that's what I say. Serious Sundays has a point.
But in addition to resistance, a forward escape into a reality absent the sickness of totalitarian rule requires the construction of a parallel society. A parallel society serves two main purposes. It offers pockets of freedom to those rejected by the totalitarian system or who refuse to participate in it.
I know I keep cutting into this, so I agree with the concept of parallel economies and parallel society that must be developed, because they are running away with their own ways of doing things. But unfortunately, in this extremely scary way, they are criminalizing certain forms of parallel society. So if you go out and you read the law and bills they have passed that restrict personal farming in your backyard, the way they regulate farming, the way they can impose civil fines on people without any due process, it's like you're not even allowed to generate your own parallel society in certain respects. So it's going to become progressively illegal doing exactly what they say we should be doing. And that is part of the totalitarian, what do you call it, spectrum? It's one of those blankets. I have the perfect word that is not coming to mind, and I will bust it out quickly and loudly as soon as I think of it.
For a new society that
Tapestry is the
out
word!
Of the destruction wrought by the totalitarians. Or as Václav Havel, a dissident under
And it is the totalitarians bringing the destruction. That's the thing. So like when there's this part of this, which is a gameplay where they want to make people get so fed up that they start to have a mentality like, well, I might as well die, or I might as well violently oppose this. And then once you take that step, once you progress into an idea of, well, the only way to stop this is to somehow resist violently, then you're putting yourself in danger, because then that's the excuse they need in their entrenched power, all the money and resources and weaponry and heavy gear they have to oppose the people. They'll all come out of the woodwork. They'll seize people. You'll disappear in the night. You'll be sent away to gulags, a.k.a. concentration camps, a.k.a. FEMA camps is what they're called right now, which they already have built, which is frightening. And I know this sounds like conspiracy theory stuff that I'm spewing, but honestly, these things, they are not to be laughed at. If you laugh at it, or if you're dismissive, or if you roll your eyes, then I fear for you, because it's really that serious. And I strongly encourage people to take me seriously and to listen carefully to this. I suppose I will post the link to this if you just want to watch the video after I'm done doing my commentary on it, because and subscribe to this amazing channel by Academy of Ideas, because it's one of my favorite things. Every time he puts out a new video, which is like once a month, it's like the first thing I watch immediately. And it doesn't depress me like some things. It stimulates me mentally, and I feel like it's what I'm meant to be watching.
Communist rule of Czechoslovakia explains in his book The Power of the Powerless.
I've barely
When
made it through
those who have
half of this.
decided to live within the truth have been denied any direct influence on the existing social structures, not to mention the opportunity to participate in them, and when these people begin to create what I have called the independent life of society, this independent life begins of itself to become structured in a certain way. These parallel structures do not grow out of a theoretical vision of systemic change. There are no political sects involved, but from the aims of life and the authentic needs of real people. There are innumerable
All these things about life evolve constantly, societally, just little by little. It's the Overton window, right? A little phase of change at one point becomes a little something else. You get people to accept a little more tyranny. Okay, you're putting up with it. Next thing you know, you are like on the ground with a boot on your throat. And you opted into all of it through this stupid device right here. Play, you.
ways to contribute to the construction of a parallel society. One can build technologies that promote freedom, or agoristic economic institutions that further voluntary exchange. One can
Paris.
run a business that resists implementing unjust laws or mandates, or one can create media or educational institutions that counter the lies and propaganda of the state.
I kind of think that's what I'm doing right now with this talk and with this video, that on some level I'm adding to the intellectual debate about it, the discourse.
Or one can create music,
And what I'm doing, he's talking in a broad stroke about the concepts, and I'm like pointing out the contemporary reality of some things.
literature, or artwork that counters the staleness of totalitarian culture. The parallel society is a decentralized and voluntary alternative to the centralized and coercive control of the totalitarian society.
And so again, what he calls an alternative here, I am saying it's not so clear cut. When the totalitarian way is eviscerating through their corrupt laws the ability for people to do that. What happens when they make it illegal to do that, create that parallel society, that parallel economy, out of which magnificent things can be born that will take you eons and light years ahead of what the totalitarian system, where it gets caught up in what it is. It like becomes a frozen modality where this is the way we're doing things, and the only way we progress is to assert more control over you and to reassert our control and make sure our control is more absolute over your life. And so what when the totalitarianism reaches a point where it's forbidding you to do those things and it ruins your life, then death becomes the alternative. And then when you're willing to die for it, suddenly the world becomes a big-ass mess, like the whole 20th century, and I feel like that's the trajectory we're headed on here. When life becomes so miserable for people, like it is in China right now day to day, people start to rise up, and then the government, which is totalitarian, has this excuse to clamp down on it and take people away to camps, prison camps, whatever name you give them. It's a camp, it's a prison camp, it's a concentration camp. It's a gulag. By any other name, it's a concentration camp, a prison camp.
As Havel explains, one of the most important tasks the dissident movements have set themselves is to support and develop parallel social structures.
All for
What
it.
else are those initial attempts at social self-organization than the efforts of a certain part of society to rid itself of the self-sustaining aspects of totalitarianism and, thus,
To extricate
itself radically from its involvement in the totalitarian system?
And so what when they make it illegal to do that is my question. With severe penalties and severe impositions of violence brought by the government itself.
And as he explains further, it would be quite wrong to understand the parallel structures in the parallel society as a retreat into a ghetto, and as an act of isolation, addressing itself only to the welfare of those who had decided on such a course. The ultimate phase of this process is the situation in which the official structures simply begin withering away and dying off, to be replaced by new structures that have evolved from below and are put together in a fundamentally different way.
And that's a beautiful idea. It's like the evolution of culture will propel you forward into something better. But it's scary when you reach the totalitarian reality, because the very idea that you want to create something new and set the course of society off in a different trajectory, that's going to be off-putting to some people, especially people in power who want to maintain their power. The most evil people of evil people want to extinguish this possibility, destroy the will of people, destroy their hope for the future that can be done. That's what makes the world a better place, is people willing to do that. And that would be the essence of a real democratic system, and not one that they're just giving lip service to while pretending it's democratic but really being totalitarian.
The construction of a parallel society, however, is not merely a long-term solution to totalitarian destruction, but also serves to counter the rise of totalitarian rule. For the act of building parallel social structures reveals that not everyone will just roll over and submit to total state control, and as was noted by Hannah Arendt, this helps keep the would-be totalitarians in check. This process also counters the social atomization that comes with totalitarian rule by promoting voluntary communal bonds between those who cherish freedom.
And I just want to add, maybe it annoys people when I stop, and that's why I encourage you to watch this. Because free societies are free societies, you can always have people with more malevolent intentions coming in and trying to take advantage of that openness in a truly free society to subvert it, to infiltrate it, and to deviate from these democratic ideals, which are innately good for people in a lot of ways, but then exploit them to eventually destroy them in order to serve some oligarchical purpose, or someone who wants to monopolize an industry, or just be all-powerful in the setting.
And as an added benefit for those who partake in this process, it can serve as a healthy vehicle to escape the day-to-day feelings of anxiety, boredom, and depression that accompany living in a world teetering with a descent into totalitarianism. For if we pick a goal to help in the construction of the parallel society and work towards it in a disciplined and focused manner.
I just want to comment, he always uses such beautiful artwork, and so you see things that really comport well to the picture that he's painting with words. This is beautiful right here. It's a picture of harmony. It's like the way things should be. You have family, you have recreation. There's nothing violent here. There's nothing to be feared. There's someone doing artwork over there. There's someone sailing over there. It's a lot of beautiful things going on here. And of course, there's even a chicken, a symbol of food and feast. I see the chicken as a symbol of being able to eat later, believe it or not. And a lot of beautiful stuff in here. The water, the trees, the skies. It's just beautiful.
We give our life more meaning, and we open up the possibility of attaining the peak experiential states of flow and Rausch. Flow is an optimal state of consciousness, in which attention is so narrowly focused on an activity that a sense of time fades, along with the troubles and concerns of day-to-day life.
Yes, I have to comment on this because it's exactly what I'm doing right now. I'm creating a flow state, and I haven't been preoccupied with the world, worrying about it in the same way. When I'm creating this thing right here, it has a redeeming quality. I'm in a flow state, and I'm not dwelling on things as much as I am philosophically fleshing them out, and hopefully by putting it out there, I might find community of like-minded thinkers from all walks of life who get why these concepts are so very important.
Rausch, on the other hand, is the word Nietzsche used for a peak cognitive state similar to flow. What is essential in Rausch, wrote Nietzsche, is the feeling of increased strength and fullness.
Yes.
Rausch is an emergent.
All the more reason to work out, all the more reason to have activities that are deliberate, reading books that interest you, developing your skill with whatever it is, your interests. Like I'm practicing piano later this afternoon. I'm probably going to practice some singing as well. And there, I usually do the hand drum a little bit when I'm done playing the piano. All these things are very important. Get that flow state in. Have that passionate reason you get up every day, because that's the meaning of life. And then you have what I have are creative skills where I can put my thoughts and ideas out there in meaningful ways.
Byproduct of focused attempts to effectuate real-world change. And when in Rausch, as in flow, we perform at our best. Or as John Richardson explains in Nietzsche's New Darwinism, in Rausch, the organism feels its capacities at a peak and takes pleasure in this heightened potency. These capacities are drives to work on the world, and in Rausch one feels oneself overfull with them, bursting to change things to fit oneself.
Yes, that's exactly what I'm talking about here, is the passion of life, the passion you have for life when you're trying to fill yourself up with everything life has to offer, because your time is limited and you better make good use of your time. Come on now, play.
Both flow and Rausch are healthy ways to escape from the day-to-day miseries of living in a sick and corrupted society. Unlike the numbing experiential zones of the backward escape, which weaken us in body and mind, flow and Rausch strengthen us and increase our feelings of power.
Just briefly about that backward escape. Earlier they were talking about how some people will flee and they'll go to another country where totalitarianism, as it chases everything down and tries to take over the world, it'll eventually catch up to you. And so just making it a parallel with my life, sometimes I think I should be moving to Florida or somewhere where they're more embodying the certain types of values I want to live with, the freedom, the autonomy, economically, etc. And so then I also have this thought that instead of running away, I should be embracing my state, the place where I live, and trying to encourage people to build our lives here, build these parallel economies, these other ways of living here, grow out of it a cultural movement that steers the state in another direction on so many levels. But I don't know how short the time frame is for chaos. I'm afraid of chaos unfolding, and that's the honest to God truth, unfortunately.
For people who experience flow and Rausch, the harder it is for those in power to herd a populace into the chains of totalitarian servitude.
Chains.
Alexander Solzhenitsyn
chains,
warned,
digital chains.
no weapons,
literal digital
no matter
chains
how
right
powerful,
here.
can help the West until it overcomes its loss of willpower.
There you
To
go.
attempt the forward escape by contributing to the creation of a parallel society, and in the process attaining the states of flow and Rausch, comes with risks. And success is not guaranteed, but it is a far better option than merely sitting passively by, just hoping things will get better.
I've been that guy.
Hope, in reality, claimed Nietzsche, is the worst of all evils because it prolongs the torments of man.
That's a cynical view.
In place of mere hope, courageous action from as many people as possible is needed to prevent the rise of totalitarian rule. And the sooner people act in defiance of would-be totalitarians, the greater the chance of success.
Yes.
For the mistake that
You
was
rule
made
those
over
lions.
and over again in the totalitarian countries of the 20th century
That's a nightmare
was
right
that
there.
people didn't act soon enough. Milton Mayer, in his book They Thought They Were
Prison
Free,
Planet.
interviews an individual who lived through Hitler's rule.
Nightmare.
And his words
All
should serve as a
prisoners right
warning
there.
for those who live in a world at risk of being engulfed by the life-destroying machinery of totalitarian rule. You wait for one great shocking occasion, thinking that others, when such a shock comes, will join with you in resisting somehow. But the one great shocking occasion, when tens or hundreds of thousands will join with you, never comes. If the last and worst act of the whole regime had come immediately after the first and smallest, thousands, yes, millions would have been sufficiently shocked. But of course this isn't the way it happens. In between comes all the hundreds of little steps, some of them imperceptible, each of them preparing you not to be shocked by the next.
Now that is something right there to me, because what I've observed the last couple of years is they create a crisis and they use it to domesticate people, and then they kind of let up a little bit. They let up a little bit and you feel a little like life is turning to normal, and then they will clamp down, and they will clamp down harder, and people are trained and domesticated into it at this point and going along with it instead of saying no, which is like what they should have said at the beginning of the lockdown. No, compliance is such the enemy of humanity, and if you comply, you're in severe danger. And I feel like I'm in danger saying that because that's not the message that the establishment wants to send. I've said things in this video where I've already had the thought sitting here that YouTube is going to come along and say, this video can't stay up here because of the nature of the thoughts you're having or whatever you're advocating. And that right there is totalitarian in nature. And the next logical step is when they feel free to come and disappear me in the night to somewhere for daring to think this way.
And one day, too late, your principles,
Too
if
late.
you were ever sensible of them, all rush in upon you.
Wake up.
And you see that everything has changed. Now you live in a world of hate and fear, and the people
Yes,
who
we
hate
do.
and fear do not even know it themselves. When everyone is transformed, no one is transformed.
Brilliant. Go to Academy of Ideas on YouTube and subscribe to this man's channel. I should honestly I should look at whoever makes these videos, see who produces them, because I'm impressed. I would love to speak to that person personally. One of the things I want to do here before I wrap it up is I want to eventually I want to have interviews with people on here, and somehow I'll start with people I know are willing to come on and have good conversations and build it up like I have in the past with past radio shows with a repertoire of people I've spoken to. And I think the people I've spoken to already will be helpful in that endeavor, but I want to put it over here on this screen. So I could probably easily set it up so that I have a Skype conversation on this screen, but there's also a built-in feature with this thing I'm using to record these videos where you can have pretty dynamic looking conversations with people over video chat, but I don't know how to do it up on this screen. I want to throw a person up on this screen and kind of have it look like a face-to-face. Anyway, that's the production goal. But this has been my first installment of Serious Sundays. I don't know what anyone thinks. Maybe a lot of people won't watch this. And for those of you trolls out there who have been paying attention to what I'm doing and have had the gall to say I'm just copying somebody, I guarantee you I just did 45 minutes more than the person you're accusing me of copying has ever done in his life to be serious about anything. And this is the bulk of it right here, that there's a TV screen right in front of me. I put a YouTube video on it and I'm zooming in on stuff. And I don't have a thing with a button where I can push for an explosion sound, but I guarantee you I would like to have something that is an exclamation at the end of me talking, and it might be a little bell that I ring, or I might put a sample in there that's like boom, because I like that idea, and that'll be the last thing I'm stealing. I am my own personality. I have my own thoughts and ideas, and I do appreciate the inspiration I've gotten from the individual I'm alluding to right now. That's all I want to say. So if you thought this was interesting, every Sunday I'm going to be trying to put up something along the lines of this where I make my own commentary, and maybe they'll get more dynamic as time goes on. So yeah, that's it, everybody. I want to say peace be with you to everyone, and make the most of your days. Be mindful, be thoughtful, be kind, and have a nice day. Peace.